Hi everyone, this is Devleena welcoming you all to another exciting episode of Iconic Ads with Devleena and Saurabh. And I have my expert co-host with me, Saurabh Bajaj. Hi Saurabh.
Hi guys. Great to be here, Devleena.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this conversation once again, Saurabh. Saurabh, what we are going to talk today?
So, Devleena, we have talked about so many campaigns now, which are all national in nature. But sometimes the passion or the true marketing in a campaign comes when the creative team feels really challenged and where the client, no matter who it is got a tough brief. So, you know what? And sometimes those jewels are there tucked away in small regions, right? So maybe we should cover a regional campaign this time where there was a serious challenge given to the creative team and how they fought back.
Yeah. So I have something in mind, and I have a guest who actually was here, and we can actually talk about a brand which is local, but they have come up with this very unconventional approach towards this ad campaign. So, yeah.
Let's go for it.
I'm happy to announce our guest for today, Miss Suman Verma. Hi, Suman.
Hi, Suman. Good to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit, of the pre-setup, like, what was your role?
So, in JWT, this happened in JWT Calcutta. Now, in JWT Calcutta, I don't think that when we were growing up in JWT Calcutta, there was ever a planner, right? And so, as account management, it was expected that if you're facing the client, then you have to be going fully prepared to be able to know what you're going to be talking about. And I'm talking of those days, and I think, creative was not a department, it was the culture of an organization. So everybody had to wear a creative hat, and so we would do that. So what account management was responsible for account planning and to be able to do the insight mining for the creative team. By which time I had done so much of talks in different college campuses and had met so many girls. I knew the girl that I had in mind, and the girl that you see, the model in that campaign, is somebody who would just come to meet me in my office. And I was just sitting and looking at her, and I was thinking that she had the prettiest smile, and she was nice and little chubby and a roly-poly girl, and she had scanty hair, but she had this little short hair. And so I just thought, this is the girl who should be the model. So I called this girl, Suchi, from the creative, and I said, come running here, I think we've got the model. So she came, and she looked at her and she says, oh my God, how mishti her smile is. What a pretty, cute smile she's got. So I said, that's it. We're just doing our bus shot, and we need her smile to capture everything. And she had the liquid brown eyes. So we said, we're there. We don't need to spend money also, because we didn't need much, because if you notice, her clothes were very simple and stuff like that. So I think on production for that particular shoot, we had spent something like $1,000 or so, because we just got those nice t-shirts, and that's about it. We told her, you come in your jeans and we'll give you the t-shirts that you want. They're all going to be white, and this is how it will be. So very honestly, I think in my early days in JWT Calcutta, the creative servicing and the planning were all rolled into one. So we do it because I anyway had a bit of my art background, so they would even trust me to come up with a lot, and I'd tell them to shut up, I dress better than you do, so I'll take that call. When you're working on such lean budgets, so you have to be very clear on what each of us would do. So it was amazing, I think,
Yeah, so we explored the part of, what was your role, how did you come across the campaign? But tell us a little bit more, like, you mentioned in passing that it was a very small client with just a 1 lakh retainer. But, what was really the key challenge that he was facing, and what was the big problem that you had to solve for? If you want to just stick on the problem and the client.
So the problem for a client like that was that, right? He needed to have an imagery, which he didn't have. people really assume that this is really for people who were financially not too strong. That's the kind of clientele that they would get, very lower order B income group of that socio-economic group. And yet, his aspirations as a jeweler was to be able to get very good clientele, because he had, I think they had a lot of gold in stock and they could do any designs that they wanted. They were while we were doing the repositioning exercise, they were also working on the design end to reposition themselves, come up with, design sets rather than anything else. Because in Bengal, if you know, the gold jewelry is mostly handcrafted, right? And handcrafted gold jewelry has a very big market, not just in Bengal, but even outside. But he had this whole challenge of, how do I change the perception of the people? Because people saw them as very middle of the road kind of brand. And second thing, like I said, they were only very well known in the astral gem segment. Now, having said that, and these were his challenges.
Let me just tease out the first part of that conversation, right? So, I think from the point of view of segmentation, it's quite interesting because, you have your existing base of consumers, which are probably not the most money, yeah? And hence pivoting to youth is a great idea because
Yes.
youth will have a similar put down price, right?
Yes.
But then the drivers will be very different, right?
Sure.
So you have usefulness as a driver, and that also helps you then pivot into a different set of deals.
Sure.
So I would say that from a segmentation standpoint, the changing of target group is of course very interesting.
Yes, and that too
And,
for an astral gem, which is not a segment that most youths would consider, right?
Correct.
Because it's
So
not
that
something
part
that it's not cool to be wearing so many finger rings, and most of the astral gems are to be worn in your finger, because that's where they say that the maximum sun rays touch your skin, and that's how the stones have an effect on your body, right? So when people, because one or two things I remember him saying was that, a lot of these young people come and they'd say that, okay, fine, I'm willing to take on the astral gems, but make earrings out of this. But it doesn't have the same effect. You still have to wear the coral and you still have to wear the pearl. And a lot of astral things, they said that, you can't wear it in gold, but it has to be gilded in silver. So, when you get into that astral bit, it's very tough because the rules are inflexible there.
Yeah. No, so that's also interesting for me because you are using the strength of the jeweler, which is astral gems,
And
and you are able to and you're able to use positioning to turn it on its head.
Yes.
So you use positioning to take the core of your client, which is astral gems, right, into a new cohort. So that again, from the point of view of segmentation and positioning, is very interesting. This whole thing of moving from a traditional category codes to youth codes must have been quite a challenge to arrive at. So where did you get the conviction to be able to do?
So I think, at that time, like I said, that, because we were speaking so much to the consumer, the right TG, the college kids and all of it. And I think I would remember that we went to, I think, 4 or 5 colleges, and we took St. Xavier's because that was my alma mater. And I said that this would be the last parking lot, Loreto and this, where you'd find the sophisticated crowd, while we'll go into the absolute the Bengali audiences where you'd really find them. But that's when you realize that, youth is a youth, whether you are Bengali speaking or you're English speaking, the aspirations are more or less the same. The drivers for them were more or less the same. And, when you package those conversation and you tell them that, do you believe in relationships? Do you believe in a career? Do you believe that you have the depth of a personality? What is your character? How do you define a character? When you spoke on different kind of things, we saw that they were all talking the same language. And they all said that, whatever it takes to float my boat, eventually that's what we'll do. So for that, if my mother tells me that does it be a conventional bride, I do it, though I don't believe in that kind of marriages. If I believe that, if wearing pearls makes me less emotional, I don't mind it because it's an aid in my life. So, when you realize that this kind of thoughts were already there, but were perhaps it was not something that people were doing it out of choice. You know, it's like something was being shoved down your throat and you had to wear it. You're not getting married, and therefore your some stars are not favoring you. Wear this ring. That's where resistance was coming. So it was not a choice. So if you notice in our campaigns, we never spoke about any of those things. We said that we looked at the depth of your personality, your different kind of personality types we took, and which was all about those were the days where your archetypes were really emerging, right? And we said, what if somebody is a magician and somebody is this, but you take that one element out of it and you bung it into that copy and you allow that person to identify. So it was just that, it was no rocket science. Very honestly, it was, I think, they gave us the ideas. We sort of put it together and we said, oh my God, Linda Goodman is better than, having any marketing guru sitting right there, because it's all there.
What I found also fascinating is typically jewelry might show young people, but they talk to the parents. Because you see that the money is with the parents, right?
Yes.
So you show young people, but you show young people dressed heavily in jewelry, which a young person will not relate to.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So you're showing somebody young, they were actually talking to the parents saying that, you know what, this is what your daughter could look like.
Right.
Or this is what your son could look like, right? I think the change that happened here, and why the tone of voice was so interesting, is because you're talking directly to the youth cohort. Saying that instead of your parents trying to convince you, and you trying to overcome that resistance, if I talk to you, I will create a easier bond.
And what I liked about this, especially this segment that drives into the fear of emotion, right? But here it's not at all focusing on the fear. It is focusing on the free will, on your youthfulness, on your own personality. So it's so much about your own thing, and that is what I think a youth relates to. Did that impacted the consumer mind also in the same way, like how we are feeling, and the mind shift also?
Oh yeah, it did. That's what I said. It went on to becoming a case study of sorts, because every time there was a talk to happen, they would invite us to come and make this conversation. We went to so many universities to present a case study that how a local jeweler had really changed the perception game.
Okay, so Saurabh, tell me about what are the 3 key takeaways and learning from today's conversation.
Great. So, I think the most important thing, Devleena, is that every brand has to recognize what its core is, right? And in this case, this jewelry brand realized that their core is actually something which is traditional, which was their knowledge of astral gems, the fact that astral gems are linked to our lives and our personalities, and that might have been an old world benefit. But if they wanted to pivot towards a new consuming cohort, they could figure out how do you repackage the same core into something which is modern and contemporary. And that's where they came up with this idea of linking it to horoscopes and Linda Goodman, right? I think that was a great idea. And I think that's the first thing, you have a brand core, figure out a new consumer and figure out how to pivot. I think that's the first learning. The second thing which I found really fascinating about this case study is the fact that when you're going after a new consuming cohort, right, you have to be able to figure out what is the self-image of that consumer. And like I always say, it's not about understanding just our brands, it's about understanding a consumer. So if you're to go after a consumer, you have to decode the consumer's personality. And the way they did that so beautifully was a little bit of poetry in the text. And any young person who would read that poetry and text would say, yes, that is what I really am. This brand understands me, right? And that is really where the mastery of marketing really comes out. Yeah. And third, and this is a slightly unconventional learning, but the third is, as a client, you have to learn how to trust your partner. Yes. All of the things which was probably provided by this brand ad agency was challenging, which was tough. It was bold. I mean, a brand like that had never done creative work like that. Whether you do it on print or outdoor or hoardings, whether it is the whole, the part of doing the unconventional launch for the new store. All of this thing was unconventional. You needed guts, you needed somebody to be bold and daring, and hence if you can trust your creative partners, you can get the best out of it. Yeah. So in summary, there are 3 key takeouts. The first takeout is understand your brand core, understand the needs of the consumer, pivot from there. Second, decode your consumers' understanding, bring it alive through the insightful, communication that you develop. And third, trust your creative partners for mind-blowing work, which not just wins awards, but really wins where it matters in the consumer's wallet.
Wow, these are very powerful and very core of marketing. Yeah, so thank you for sharing those insights with us and with our viewers, Saurabh, once again. So we had a lovely conversation and very powerful takeaways.
Right? Already looking forward to next week, Devleena.
Yeah, same here, Saurabh.